Salam and peace. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and you're watching Muslim Network TV. Muslim Network TV is an America-based new television channel which air on Galaxy 19 satellite. Galaxy 19 satellite covers the whole United States of America, east to west, north to south, as well as Canada and Mexico. We're also on, streaming platforms like Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Roku. You can download our app, Muslim Network TV, on your iPhone and Android, and you can watch it there as well. Our website is muslimnetwork.tv. And thank you so much for tuning in, and we're 24/7. You can always be with us. And today we'll have some conversation about freedom and respect. The terrible murder of a French teacher who showed his class the infamous, controversial European cartoon of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. It ignited the old conflict and an old debate and a lot of terrible memories. I must say at the outset that the Prophet Muhammad would not be pleased with somebody committing a murder in his honor. He's the one who actually established a society with law and order and, of course, values and respect. He actually banned revenges. How can you take a revenge of a person who banned revenges in that society? But unfortunately, there's a long tradition in the European colonial powers and Christian missionaries who went with the military to say something hurtful about Prophet Muhammad, knowing pretty well that 1 or 2% among the millions of people who will react in anger in a way which will prove their point. And the point is Muhammad, peace be upon him, was a violent man. Fact of the matter is that he lived 28,000 days in this world, and he never hit anyone, never killed anyone. He was a peacemaker, and the total days of war in his life were 6 days, actual battle, that is. And that's also when people came invading his peace sanctuary. So depicting him that way hurts Muslims very deeply. So French Muslims are part of France, not because they chose, but France occupied North Africa and is still in Mali and Central African Republic. They're going around and Muslims want them out. So they became sort of naturally part of this France, the extended France, which it was. So French government website actually helped me this morning as I was preparing for this show. I read part of their constitution. So here's the French ministry website. Says its heading is "Secularism is French invention," it claims. Well, they should have improved on their invention, I guess. It says, and the constitution, it quote of 1958, France is an indivisible, secular, democratic, and social republic. I have no problem with that. And it continues, guaranteeing that all citizens, regardless of their origin, race, or religion, are treated as equal before the law. That is good. Ideals are good. That's what they should extend to their Muslims also. And it continues saying, and respecting all religious beliefs. Respect. That's the questions Muslims are talking about. How do they respect? Recently, in March 15, 2004, they established, based on the secular principle, that Muslims, essentially Muslim, but law include all religious people, they cannot have the religious thing on display. Displaying religious worship to be worn in schools. That was in public schools. So the Muslims cannot have hijab, and Sikh cannot have their turbans, and Jews cannot have their symbol of, or the Christians cannot have their cross. That is 2004. Main aim was Muslims, but everybody got in there. In 2010, France banned face covering for Muslim women in public. So nobody could do that. And 2016, secularism continues to grow in respect of the religion, quote unquote. Well, that's my quotation mark there. That there was a swimwear. Muslim women who do not like to expose their body, they have somebody, some fashion designer came up to make money, something called burkini. So it covers the body very tightly still. Some religious people may not like that, but it was a swimwear sort of. It imposed a ban on that in 2016. So that's a French crusade against a swimwear. In 2017, a law allowed French government to ban masks. Since then, they have invaded and raided many mosques, banned shut down completely more than a dozen mosques. And there are towns with large Muslim population, and they don't let them build any mosque there. So respect your talk. Economists have and I quote economist here from London, that Facebook has taken down a lot of photos. It includes a Photoshop picture of President Macron in pink underwear, which French police wanted removed because it broke a law from 1881 restricting press freedom. A Photoshop pink underwear. The government of France asked Facebook to take down, and they deleted it. A courtesy and a respect extended to the president of France. Why it cannot be extended to other people? So there are cartoons and murders given rise to these two topics, respect and freedom. Muslim, unfortunately, are talking about more on respect, and French, unfortunately, are talking just about freedom. Can they talk to each other? Can freedom and respect live together? Can human beings understand each other? In the midst of that, I don't know, somehow, an article I found, somebody forwarded to me, and it's a scholar who is American, living in Canada, but have spent quite a bit of his life in the Muslim world. And he calls French secularism militant secularism. And he has many other thoughts. I thought we need to talk to him. And he is Graham Fuller. Welcome to Muslim Network TV, Graham Fuller.
Thank you very much, Malik. My pleasure.
Thank you. Graham A. Fuller is a former vice chair of the National Intelligence Council at the CIA, in charge of long-range strategic forecasting. He is currently Adjunct Professor of History at Simon Fraser University in Vancouver. Well, tell me, wasn't it quite predictable that they will publish this cartoon and one or two people going to lose their mind over it?
Well, I think given past events, it is not completely surprising that this took place. But I think we might have to acknowledge also that anyone that would choose to go out and behead someone in public who offends them and offends their religion himself is probably a bit mentally disturbed. I mean, there are many people who commit violent acts where they have some justification, whatever it is, but not to the degree to commit horrendous murder of someone.
Yes, horrendous murder indeed, and of a teacher. So you're absolutely right. Why you call French secularism is militant?
Well, because it seems to be the most uncompromising among Western states as to how to interpret freedom and freedom of speech. In this case, for the French, and based on the French Revolution, they seem to view freedom of speech as an absolute right, overcoming almost all other rights as such as you mentioned, dignity and respect. So in effect, we are having a clash even between various values. And I would have to say, as complicated as this issue is, I'm not sure it can ever be fully resolved between these two contradictory values. They have to be resolved situationally, depending on the country, the people, the issue, the time, the place, and requires some degree of citizen responsibility and sensitivity.
Citizen responsibility, sensitivity, and the whole good values of forgiveness and moving forward and developing a relationship which is mutually beneficial. Now, those values individual cherish very much. Why? What historical things took French to make secularism the way they define and redefine as an absolute value, which must control other values and other system and other institutions?
Well, I think this goes back to originally to the French Revolution. And we have to remember that the Catholic Church in Europe has a long, long history of a great deal of state power. And like any institution, churches or religious institutions can also abuse their power. It's not the religion's fault, it's the human being's fault that abuse this power. So the Catholic Church exerted a great deal of power over French society, freedom, social freedoms, and that kind of thing, class freedoms even. So I think that when the French Revolution took place, one of the main issues was to unseat, if you will, the power of even the secular power of the Catholic Church in Europe. And that's why this law was passed at the time of the French Revolution, and maybe not this exact law, but similar laws, saying that the church cannot stifle free speech in the name of religion.
Mm. And that's where, French Revolution, when beheading became an art, and there are machines sitting on the squares of Paris, which were used for that purpose. And I was surprised that children going around those things and being explained to them what it was. So they continuously want to perpetuate those memories and history of that particular event, which turned upside down. But I was curious the way you use the term secular power of Catholic Church. Could you define that? Because Americans at this moment, of course, when the Catholic Church, because of the pedophile cases, remain in the news even this morning, but that's a individual priest abusing their power. But what was the secular power of Catholicism, which may not be in the conscious of a whole lot of people nowadays?
Well, I think anyone interested in this should Google the French Revolution or French history on this point. But the church, and I'm not even a specialist on European histories, but the church certainly had power within the state. Clergy had great power within the state. It was essentially opposing, let's say, more radical reforms, and became associated with corruption. The church had a great deal of money. And as I said earlier, I fear that any large organization, whether it's religious or secular or whatever, can be subject to corruption over time if there are not controls. And in this case, I think at the time of the French Revolution, people were quite thrilled to weaken the power of the church locally. I mean, even in Canada, there was some issue over this in the 20th century when the church's position in Quebec province in Canada was quite strong socially and politically and even economically. And eventually there was a change in policy. I think it was called the soft revolution or quiet revolution or something like that. In any case, the church's power within the Quebec province was greatly weakened. I don't think people saw this necessarily as an anti-religious move, but certainly an anti-church move, an anti-institutional move, and we need to distinguish between these two phenomena.
So, what do you think of the? Do you agree with the French Foreign Ministry claiming that they gave birth to secularism in the world?
Well, you'd have to study the history of philosophy. Certainly, the French Revolution made this a centerpiece of its new philosophy and guiding principles of governance. I'm sure the concept was not unknown. I mean, they didn't invent the word necessarily, but I think it may have been the first major world state to adopt the idea of disestablishing the power of a religious institution. So I think the French very much fear the involvement of politics with religion. And they're not altogether wrong. Politics is very powerful. Religion is very powerful. And each has exploited the other in history. We have to be very careful about religion exploiting power or power exploiting religion, political power, for its own ends.
You're watching Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid, and I'm talking with Graham Fuller, who has been with CIA for the longest period of his life. We'll be right back after these messages.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Adam. You remember me? I appeared in so many episodes that Sound Vision has put on the market. No matter what. Hey, what's happening? Hey, oh, sorry. Lockdown is what it is. Well, continuing here. In this lockdown, Sound Vision never stops thinking about you, the viewer. We'll have to get back into production again, online and inline. Everybody in their own space, even me. Although I'm stuck with Lanisa.
Salam! Salam! Salam!
I know, you were shocked too. Well, let me continue. This is what I was going to say. Salam! 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 Cut! 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 Finally, I get my own screen time again. Thank God. And so we invested in new equipment to bring you even better production with new songs and new singers and animations. Well, here are a few clips. And Sound Vision has brought all this into your home, making Islamic values and teachings easy. And if you know me, Adam, a multi-talented actor, well, sometimes I'm an actor and the reporter and the... Oh, that's enough. Let's move on to the next section. Well, you can watch these new episodes on our new app at www.adamsworldapp.com. We have previews happening every day on Muslim Network TV. Sound Vision has been serving generations, moving and changing with the times. We are all faithfully connected. That is a huge blessing. Your donation helps keep these programs available now and into the future. We take this job of helping tomorrow's Muslims today seriously, and you should too. Today, we need your help. Children absorb and learn from everything they encounter. Make that wholesome, positive, grounded in our faith. Together, we can accomplish our goal of raising better Muslims, better neighbors, and better citizens. Please donate generously. It's an investment in our future. But to finish, let me tell you, there are new scripts of my new mission. And it is something that I enjoy talking about. My new mission is space. Houston, we do not have a problem. Salam, see you soon. Me too.
Welcome back to Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. I'm talking with Graham Fuller, who has been long time serving America in his position at CIA. What are the boundaries between free speech and hate speech?
That is the major question you have put your finger on, Malik. There are no clear boundaries. These things are situational. As for one thing, the United States or most countries of the world that may honor free speech do not permit you to yell out the word fire in the middle of a crowded movie theater. That is not permitted. So there's a constant balance between what you should say, could say in a given situation, and what is very, very inappropriate. That, as you know, that was part of the purpose of my article. How far can we go in allowing people to say things that are hurtful of other people? Now in the United States, it has reached a point where certainly the gay community, or even more so the trans community, so-called, believes that there can be speech that is very hateful against them, that is harmful to their dignity, and they are requesting that people not be allowed to use these terms or that are too harshly critical or even satirizing such things. So I think a lot of liberals in the West are sympathetic to to people who are hurt by hate speech. But on the other hand, if everybody's sensitivities on all issues are off limits, then in effect, we really have no free speech whatsoever. Am I allowed to mock a Republican or mock a Democrat for various reasons? There is no clear boundary. That's the bottom line.
So, but there are hate laws. In Canada, there are hate laws. In Europe, there are hate laws. In America, we don't have any hate laws, but we have laws against hate crimes. So what is, do you know anything, what type of hate laws are there in Europe?
Well, I think all Muslims are well aware of the fact that you are not allowed to any overt anti-Semitism, let's put it that way, or Holocaust denial. But this is also very political. I hate to say so. The Holocaust was one of the most horrendous mass murder crimes in history. But at the same time, so it's become off limits to even talk about it or to challenge it. Is that infringing on freedom of speech? Yes, it certainly is in some ways. I think the horrific aspects of the Holocaust was so great upon the European mind that everyone agreed that there should be no tolerance for denial of the Holocaust, and Jews particularly as the #1 victims. But now, of course, Muslims have come to Europe in far greater quantities, even beginning to outnumber Jews. I don't know what the exact statistics are, but now Muslims also are concerned about speech that is seen as hateful, hurtful. Hurtful is a good word because it's not quite the same as hating somebody, but it's hurtful to somebody's mentality, perhaps. It might not be hateful to me, but it might be hateful to you. So I think the issue of now Islam as a victim of hateful speech has become much more prominent.
You raise few other questions about limiting the freedom of speech, and you talk about, in New York City, Harlem, or Atlanta, Georgia. So share some of those examples in which society itself, there may not be any laws against it, but society itself culturally think it is a bad practice.
Well, certainly, again, we come to the issue of sensitivity and common sense as well. So in my article, I did mention that that I legally do have a right to go to Harlem, which is the mainly black, one of the major black neighborhoods in New York City. I have a right to go there and carry placards or yell that Martin Luther King is a fool. Martin Luther King was a womanizer. Any number of things about Martin Luther King. I would be an absolute fool to do so, because I know I would rouse great anger against me on the streets. I might even get beaten up at the least. So I think people who insist on insulting and harming and saying hurtful things about other people will suffer some degree of consequences socially. It's not a justifiable thing, but it's a human thing. Similarly, in Mexico, the Virgin of Guadalupe is very revered. This is essentially, it's a non-historical figure, the Virgin, but she's a symbol of Mexico in many ways. And for youth who live in LA, who are not even in Mexico, but of Mexican origin, often have T-shirts with the Virgin of Guadalupe. And this is both religious but it's also secular. It's also a pride in being Mexican and the symbols of Mexico. If I insult the Virgin of Guadalupe in Los Angeles, I might easily get beaten up. And if somebody is sufficiently deranged mentally, I could even get murdered, perhaps, for saying these things. But, so part of it is common sense, Malik. You would be very, very stupid to do this kind of thing. And you would be very hurtful and insensitive to say all these things, whatever the truth might be, whatever I may think about Martin Luther King. I would be very hurtful to a minority such as Black Americans, who have suffered more than any other minority in the United States ever due to slavery. People have to be sensitive. They are sensitive, I think, by and large, to this. But you would still have a right, in theory, to blacken the name of Martin Luther King.
You also mentioned, while thinking about sensitivities and issues of respect, the negative colonial memories which Muslims in France have. You want to elaborate what are those negative colonial memories and how you think these are relevant?
Well, certainly colonialism, European colonialism primarily, extended almost over every country of the world for 100 years, 200 years, 50 years, depending where. And it was certainly the imposition of European power and dominance over all of these countries, even Christian countries. I mean, the dominance of Spain in Latin America, for example. So I think there's a great deal of cultural sensitivity about demanding now respect for traditions and cultures that perhaps had not gotten full degree of respect or were even disrespected during colonial periods, depending on which colony, where, and at what time. So the issue of colonialism is still not, let's say, completely put to bed.
Especially because, French continuously were involved. I mean, I was looking at Central African Republic as a human rights activist. French got United Nations support to go there. I mean, so when I researched, I found out there was a coalition government came into being, whose name was a coalition government, and it was an interfaith coalition between Christians and Muslims. And the French media, which is, of course, based in France, but controls part of West African and North African discourse, started saying that Muslims are taking over. And within a few months, they landed with 250 soldiers to bring peace. I learned that, Central African Republic is size of France. And then the U.S. Samantha Power at the United Nations says that all the 400 or so mosques, except 2, are demolished through there. So their intervention and those type of things continue. And when I spoke to the only surviving imam inside Bangui, the Central African Republic, I said, to stop all this, what is going on, which Bishop Desmond Tutu described as a genocide, the only thing which it is was taking French outside the country. He thought that French are the one who are creating these type of problems. So that's recent. So the negative colonial memories are connected with the recent experience of Muslim consciousness, and you talk about that as well. So share some of those things with us.
Well, this may not be a direct response to that question, Malik, but I think for Europeans, for example, as a result in the aftermath of this brutal murder of the French teacher, Macron, of course, President Macron spoke out publicly in ways that were somewhat dismissive of Islam, I think, saying that it was, I don't remember his exact words, but simply suggesting that it was in having problematic societies everywhere. And unfortunately, but not surprisingly, all kinds of European Muslims or other Muslims ended up not criticizing the murder so much because they were so angry with Macron's statements that were really in some ways anti-Islamic. But unfortunately, this has created a very bad impression among non-Muslims who think that, therefore Muslims support this kind of murder, which of course 99.9% of Muslims probably do not support. But the impressions that are left are very sensitive issues.
And where the role of, what government leader says. I mean, another conservative precedent when actual attacks came, when 100 or so people died, he used the proper vocabulary. He did not appreciate and supported the cartoon while condemning, and all the Muslim and mosque, everyone was condemning that as well. So he tilted the discourse, and instead of taking in the right direction, took it in a very nationalistic and asserting the secularism versus. So conversation between people who call for consideration and respect and people who continue to cherish freedom. Why people who cherish freedom think people calling for respect don't cherish freedoms?
Well, because I think we agreed early on in our discussion today that there was in some ways a contradiction or a tension, let's say, between the idea of respect and the idea of freedom. To the degree that I push my rights and my freedoms to say these things further and further, I may be infringing on respect of other people. And it isn't just religious respect. I mean, there are questions such as the murders of some young man that went in and murdered people in a nightclub. I think it was in Arizona or somewhere.
Orlando.
Pardon me?
Orlando.
Orlando, yes. He may have felt offended against people who are gay. People have a right to be offended if they want, but they do not have a right to take violent action against anyone. To what degree, if people say, look, we are biologically born this way towards gay tendencies, should they be punished? Should they have a right to respect for their views? I mean, there are any number of areas where we can say that people who are crippled, who are lame, should you make jokes about them? This is not freedom of speech so much, but it's also a matter of humanity, common sense, respect for human dignity that goes beyond just religion.
France, in its secular experience, when we take this break, I like you to dwell on it. Reducing the power of the Catholic Church, so it doesn't influence and control the polity and the society and impose corruption or whatever was conceived at the time of French Revolution on other people. Did end up actually trying to control religion. And I will discuss that. You're watching Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. I'm talking with Graham Fuller, who has served 20 years at the CIA and has written an article about sensitivity, respect, and debate around freedom of speech in France. We'll be right back after these messages.
My wife, she's a professor at the University of Cincinnati, who's Catholic, and by her watching and listening to our 3-year-old son watch Adam's World, she ended up taking Kalima Shahada. She embraced Islam because she learned so much about Islam and the other prophets. It really affected our life in a great way. And because of Sound Vision and Adam's World, we're Muslims.
I took my Shahada 15 years ago, and I actually am from a rural part of Ohio. And so I found the catalog for Sound Vision, and I ordered the tapes and the CDs and the books, and I used those, and especially for my little daughter, you know, that's how we basically learned our Islam, and Islam entered our hearts through the wonderful works of Sound Vision.
Okay, assalamu alaikum, brother. I just want you to know that I love the Sound Vision website, that a lot of times when I'm looking for information, especially as it relates to homelessness, domestic violence, and women issues, I go to that website, and then I see what you've written, and then I copy and paste it, and spread the word, because the wisdom is there, so I can't do any better than what Sound Vision has already done.
Sound Vision is our survival guide. It is the organization that provides skills for Muslims how to survive and thrive in this community here in the US.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Anam, I'm in 11th grade, and I grew up with Adam's World, and what it taught me was unity, respect, and love for the Muslim Ummah.
Adam's World is the greatest show ever made. Take me to the Kaaba, man. I love that puppet.
Assalamu alaikum.
Open up your eyes.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's your brother Zain Bika from South Africa. One of the first educational programs ever produced for Muslim children was the ever popular Adam's World series. The colorful and comical Muslim puppets stole the heart of a generation. Sound Vision will be releasing brand new episodes of Adam's World with the launch of a Adam's World app. Subscribers will enjoy new Adam's World episodes as they are released, as well as all the classic episodes of Adam's World. So visit adamsworldapp.com now to learn more, subscribe and enjoy new adventures of Adam and his friends. And let's keep helping tomorrow's Muslims today. Assalamu alaikum.
Adam's World. Believe me, there's a lot to see. Bismillah. Let's explore.
Welcome back to Muslim Network TV. This is Imam Malik Mujahid talking with Graham Fuller. So in France, I came to learn it in a very strange way. You know, the Muslim greeting, Assalamu alaikum, you have lived in Muslim countries, and you know, it's a very common thing to say. It is no longer considered a religious thing. It's a cultural thing. A person who is not even a Muslim, people who do not practice Islam, who are even atheists will say Assalamu alaikum. But a French minister visiting a think tank in Chicago And he was being taken around because he was a Muslim, and he was first Muslim, I think not a full minister, but deputy minister of some sort. He will not say Walaikum Salam or respond to my greeting at all, although he was of Arab heritage and knew Arabic, could speak Arabic. So in another think tank meeting, we were going around about looking for European integration of immigrants. I was in a delegation of a think tank in Chicago. Now it was called Council on Foreign Relations Chicago. Now it is Council on Global Affairs. And in France, we were talking with some deputy minister or high official. I don't remember. There were many of them, and we were 3-4 of us. And I was the only Muslim, and we're talking about. So they highly recommended for us to go and visit a mosque where the president of the Council of French Muslim, name may not be exact, sits there. So we went there. It was a beautiful mosque, very historic, developed a long time ago in the heart of France and cultural part of France, actually, not very far from other monuments. And I was impressed. And since I was chair of a Council of Muslim organization in Chicago, I just simply wanted to see bylaws of the council, which he had sent chairs. He said, oh, bylaws, I don't have them. You should have asked the ministry where you came from, because they wrote those bylaws and they have them. I said, what? I was shocked and surprised. And so I started learning. It turned out that French government essentially controls not only, Muslims and all that, but they try to control the Catholic Church in many ways. So it's the respect of religion or freedom of religion somehow is not what it is stated. They essentially control it. So your militant secularism in some way is the sort of a government imposed institution there.
Yes, well, I mean, the intervention into society by religious or non-religious organizations is always a problem. I think you're well aware in the United States that there are many so-called fundamentalist Christians who were very outspoken during the American election in support of Trump and very harshly critical of people who were anti-Trump. So, and some of these were even religious leaders themselves. So how, should these people be, from their religious position, be intervening in political statements, political issues? The tension, again, we're talking, it's not an absolute line. This is a tension between the power of the state to, in theory, to protect society, and the power of religious organizations or other political organizations that have other interests. Also, before we leave this, Imam Malik, I would just like to say one thing about the two-way street of tolerance. As you know, I have lived in the Muslim world for many, many years, and I learned a good bit of Arabic. And myself and my family always really appreciated things like the Muslim greetings of Assalamu alaikum and Assalamu alaikum and this or Alhamdulillah, which are very nice, warm expressions to use. But I remember I was also one time in Malaysia doing some research, and I said, Assalamu alaikum to, I don't know, some maybe religious figure or maybe not religious, but a Muslim, of course. And he said, are you a Muslim? And I said, no, not actually, but I've studied a lot about Islam. He said, well, you should not use that word. Also in Malaysia, for example, Christians have been denied the right to use the word Allah. Now, in Arabic, the word for God is Allah, whether you are a Christian God or Muslim God, Allah is the word for God.
And in Aramis, which earliest Bible word is also similar to that, Allah, something like that.
Yeah. So anyway, Malaysia passed a law saying that only Muslims were allowed to use the word Allah. But yet, if you read the Christian Bible in the Middle East that Christians use, the word for God all the way through the entire Bible is Allah. Mm-hmm. So, I wonder what
like we use the word God interchangeably, talking about God Almighty, creator of us all. So yeah, there is it is this freedom issue of religious freedom is itself an issue. But talking about whether French has gone too far in their, American example, which you started talking about, is very different. Of course, there are some influences like that. There are about 14 states which have passed laws against Islamic law, which no Muslim have demanded to be implemented here. So it sometimes goes that far, but there are a whole lot of debate and opposition to those type of things. And in 40 states or so, those attempts failed. But French government banning a swimsuit, which was considered a little more modest by Muslims, and coming up laws after laws, how you dress, not only government offices, but in public. Is somebody walking on the street, how they dress, they controlling that, while no French Muslim authority have asked them that you must wear that. So there is no conflict of religious authority versus the French government authority, which is at risk. It's a personal behavior. Some Muslims have, dresses which I will not love my daughters to have, but others have, people have different choices in this. So is French government in this way is gone way far in terms of individual choices in practice of their religious rights versus, banning burkinis and things like that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think in France it's the most unusual case. Well, I use the word militant secularism. As you know, I think many Muslims sometimes feel that secularism means that that secularism is anti-religious, whereas I think you're well aware that secularism, the real meaning of secularism is that the state does not.
So separation of religion and politics, the way we understand it in America, but it seems to be different in France, that it is controlled by the state of religion.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit in the conclusion 5 minutes we have. Let's come to America. You already brought to America issues of religious freedom, and of course, different religious communities participating, giving their opinion about how America should be. Do you think in America Muslims and are better understood now than say 20 years ago?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about this, Imam Malik. I would say astonishingly so. One reason there was misunderstanding and ignorance about Islam was because there were no Muslims in the United States for hundreds of years. In any significant numbers. And then suddenly now there are large numbers. Furthermore, they're not just poor immigrants, they're people of high professional caliber and skills. So Americans are slowly getting used to the idea that there is another major religion in the world. I don't think most Christians really object to Islam, but some do. There are I have given a talk one time in a group where I said, look, you know, Christians and Muslims are both talking about the same God. And a man came up to me after the talk, this was in the US, came up to me after the talk and said, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. My God gave his only son to be sacrificed for humanity. Muslim God, Allah, did not do that. So my God is not the same as the Muslim God. Well, you know, what can you say to this kind of thing if you were that rigid? Also, I want to just bring up one brief fact here. There are elements within Islam that worry me also that I think can be very, very intolerant. I think we know, particularly, I'll have to say it specifically, in Saudi Arabia, there are forms of Islam in which takfir of other people, even of other Muslims, is quite common. And I fear that this also is not in the real spirit of Islam, but I am not a Muslim and therefore do not have the right to say so. But that's my impression. And I think many other Muslims also are concerned where intolerance creeps into Islam just as it creeps into Christianity or Buddhism in Sri Lanka or wherever else.
Absolutely, absolutely. I will share with you. I mean, this is unfortunately, people do that. I mean, in Chicago, a African-American professor at a respected Christian institution, Wheaton College, she was tenured professor. She was fired because of that one line. She said that Muslim worship the same God as I do. I remember in another evangelical school, they invited me talking about peace in Islam. And I talked about it. They asked me to go first. And then the preacher stood up who was of their following. And for the rest of the 40 minutes, they were discussing how this infidel who was sitting right here talking to you is going to go hell. Is there any peace for him? And despite that whole conversation, they all signed all their names, giving me a gift of a paper of some sort of which they developed. And so those theological people, I think, need to be checked. I think not only I have a right to talk about it, but you have a right to talk about it. All of us have a right to talk about it. But talking at a different thing and coming up with laws about bikini is a very different type of phenomena. Let me ask you a little different question, and maybe that's where we will end. I mean, you have worked for CIA. You have served our country in a extremely long career, and you have been around the world substantially. Tell me a time when our country, America, this is not, you're in Canada, I realize now, US has stood up in principle for democracy in the Middle East and every other places, and without compromising, without giving more value to what is American interest or is interest of Israel as compared to interest of democracy. Because liberal elite and those Muslim elite in Muslim world who want freedom, liberty, and Islam, they are very, sometimes you hear and read them, they come out very sincerely for democracy. And then they complain about America, it's all about talk. So give me one era, one time, one president when we were more serious about democracy than our country interest.
Offhand, I cannot think of a single case, Imam Malik, that would demonstrate support for democracy against interests. The fact is, American national interests, however interpreted, because I might interpret them one way, and some other government or some other president might interpret them another way, but every single time the national interests, so-called, so as perceived, will take precedence over democracy. So the United States invariably pushes democracy very hard against its enemies, against Russia, against China, against Iran, against I don't know, Venezuela, whatever you want, whatever you choose to say. But never is democracy bestowed as a gift to friendly states like Saudi Arabia or other countries in the Middle East or Southeast Asia or others. If they are friendly, the United States has not seriously criticized them. Maybe a few little words here or there, but nothing serious. So yes, there is a clear bias in favor of the national interest over democracy and over human rights. And I fear that will always be the case. Okay, I understand that. But then when America starts to preach about this and preach its values and then violate those values in so many cases, I become very upset.
Well, thank you so much, Graham Fuller. It was a pleasure talking to you.
My pleasure too.
Inviting you for more conversation, and we seems to have respect for the way you asserted. I wish more people will be listening and reading to what you have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
And thank you, Sherdil Khan and Dr. Abdul Wahid, for producing today's show. And thank you for watching Muslim Network TV. We are always there 24/7 on, live on airing on satellite Galaxy 19, or streaming on Apple TV, Amazon TV, and you're on phone. You can download our app, Muslim Network TV, and our own website, muslimnetwork.tv. Peace, salam.